Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session, Think Big, Start Small. I would like to, on behalf of our panelists, I would like to welcome everyone to this panel. My name is Eli. I'm the Chief of Staff for XQ. We are a Singapore-based corporate venture studio. I'm your moderator for today, and yeah, let's get started. So, a couple of months ago, the team at MES contacted me and they say, "Oh, we have this very interesting panel. Think big, start small, and we are looking for a moderator. And we know you at XQ. You basically build startups from 0 to 1. So I thought this is an interesting topic for you. So I said." Why not? This is exactly what we do. Yeah, so this is how I got into this, and I'm really happy to have a few very experienced entrepreneurs, and also Deepa is actually one of the founding team in several startups. So very happy to have them joining me today. And I would like to kick off the session by introducing my fellow panelists. So first, on my left, we have Jared Goh. Jared is the co-founder and CEO of Signum Singapore. And previously, Jared was the head of alternative investment for Crimson Knox Capital, a single family office. And before that, Jared was also a managing director with global investment firms. And he has very rich experience in the sovereign wealth funds, endowments, foundation, pension fund, and single family offices in the investment space. Gerald also co-established the business unit in Beijing for the business that he's in, and he holds a degree in management from Singapore Management University. Welcome, Gerald.
Thank you.
And next, in the middle, we have Jason Xie. Jason is a visionary serial entrepreneur and business leader with proven track record in founding and scaling innovative ventures across multiple industry, actually. So he's currently the founder of WorkSG. WorkSG is a pioneering freelance employment marketplace in Singapore. And Jason has experiences in various domains of expertise, including business development, strategic management, and marketing. Very happy to have you here today, Jason.
Thank you.
And last, Deepa, we have Deepa Shada. So Deepa is one of my most favorite type of people to work with. So he's a CTO from Endowers. Endowers is Asia's leading digital wealth platform. Since joining Endowers, Deepa has spearheaded numerous successful initiatives, including market expansion, establishing offices in different locations. And before this, Deepa joined Endowers from Amazon Web Services, AWS, where he was the head of developer solution architecture for the ASEAN region. So Deepa has a wealth of experience in the financial services industry. So before this, he's also served in JP Morgan and Citibank. Welcome, Deepa.
Thank you.
Yep. So without further ado, I will jump right into the panel discussion today. So the first question I have from here is I would like to ask all of you, in your opinion, how can startup founders or founding team effectively balance thinking big with starting small and taking small steps when building a tech startup in particular? Deepa, you want to start?
Sure. Thanks for having me, and this is a great topic to kick off on. So let me take Endowers as an example for this think big, start small. So for Endowers, our founding mission is to ensure that everyone has enough for their retirement, right? So in Singapore, in Hong Kong, across Asia. And we want to do this by bringing conflict-free, Yale-style endowment investing and make it accessible to everyone from the individual investor to high net worths to family offices. So that's a big mission. Now, how do you start on that mission? How do you make progress towards that mission? For us, we focused on Singapore, so we started in Singapore. And in Singapore, we decided that we really need to look at CPF investment because CPF is very core to, it's a large part of every Singaporean savings. And we said if we can't actually figure out how to get people to invest their CPF, we won't make a lot of progress towards making sure they have enough for retirement. So we spent the first close to 2 years building the first fully digital CPF investment experience in Singapore, and we launched with that. And 5 years later, we are still the only people doing that. Now, of course, after that, we did a lot of other things, big things like expanding into Hong Kong and lots of small things. But that was like core to where we started. So I think, when it comes to starting out, you really have to ask yourself what is core to your mission, what is core to your business, and you shouldn't compromise on that. You shouldn't compromise on what is essential to achieving your purpose, because if you do that, then what's your purpose? What are you bringing new into the world? And then everything around that, of course, you start small, increment, build around that. So that's, I think, the right way to balance big and small.
Thank you. Jason?
So thank you for the privilege for being on this panel. Right. So as a founder, I believe that it's very important to start out with a bold vision. But more often than not, these visions are very intimidating, very overwhelming, even for me, for the businesses that I start. So what I usually do, I usually break them down into small achievable steps so that it doesn't become too overwhelming and too much for me to handle. And the truth is that among me and my friends I have friends of entrepreneurs, more often than not, these ideas become too intimidating and the task seems too big to achieve and they end up dropping the idea. So for WorkSG, what we did in the start was that we built a very basic, very skeletal, minimal viable product in 3 months. And what we did was, that was our first step. We took the MVP to the schools, and we started speaking to the students who we determined were our potential users. And from there, we refined and we improved on the product. And I think using the same guiding principles, we continued to build on that and to create more utility and functionality for our business. So I think on the topic of thinking big and starting small, it's really to have a vision and to focus on the small little steps to get there, to prevent yourselves from getting overwhelmed and for it to just be too much. Yep. Thank you, Eli.
Gerald?
Hi, everyone. Very nice to be able to address everyone today. I realize that not everyone in the crowd probably knows who Signum is, so if you allow me, I'm happy to share a little bit more about who we are, what we do. Signum is a digital asset-focused financial institution. We were ideated in Singapore and Switzerland. We continue to be headquartered out of these two important locations to us. And our focus is really to help empower everyone everywhere to own their digital assets, which include cryptocurrencies, tokenized assets, stable coins. So we want to empower everyone everywhere to own these digital assets with complete trust. We started off as an idea, probably even less than a seed of an idea, at Singapore FinTech Festival in 2017. Since then, we've established ourselves as a fully licensed and regulated bank in Switzerland, as the holder of 5 licenses here from the MES in Singapore. And we've also expanded since then to Luxembourg, the UAE in Abu Dhabi, and this year Liechtenstein and soon Hong Kong as well. We started off as 4 co-founders, myself, the one Singaporean on the team. My other 3 co-founders are Swiss. And we've added now a team of 250 people around us in all the locations. And collectively, we've gone from 0 in revenues and 0 in assets to more than $4 billion US of assets today. I say all this because we had a big dream and a big ambition in the start of our journey. But it took a really, really long time and really, really many small steps before we were able to eventually get to where we are today. And we still have many more steps to go. When I think about the topic of, we have today about thinking big and starting small, it brings me back to those early days of our journey. Four of us, in a room on Zoom calls and just hashing it out. And I think about the fact that a quote that I quite like is, only the ones of us who are crazy enough to think that we can change the world are the ones that actually do. And so you have to have that bold, hairy, audacious goal, as they say. And that vision in the start is so important because it helps everyone around you, all the stakeholders that are important to you, navigate towards a common North Star. And the vision has to be, audacious enough that it can excite people, that it can change people, that can shake them out of their stupor, right, of their everyday lives. Because you need to motivate investors, you need to motivate your early team members, and then for us in the fintech space, you also need to motivate the regulators sometimes. That the status quo that they have today is not good enough. That we can do better, and we should. So I really am very privileged to be able to speak to everyone here today, and I'm looking forward as we go through the course of this panel today to get into the sharing and maybe the reflections and more the anecdotal stuff. I think the stuff that we all describe, Deepak, Jason, I think it's important, right? The mechanics, basically, how we do it, the execution. And to be fair, it's also, everything you can learn from reading the Lean Startup, which I'm reading for the 5th time again, just to remind myself. So that's all important. But starting from the vision, the mission, the purpose, the why, as Deepak said, and also Jason amplified, I think that's very important for us to get back to that core, because it's around that vision that the whole startup is built and progress through time.
Thank you, Gerald. Don't know about the audience, but I feel very inspired by what you say. And for the next question, I want to build on what Deepak mentioned in the beginning. So you mentioned that as a team, we need to focus on the core value proposition, and what we believe and our values should not change. So can you share from your maybe the tech perspective, how do we build strong foundation? I mean, how do we balance between building strong foundation and getting business skill ready, especially when we are talking about tech business?
Yeah, that's a great question, especially for fintechs, because for fintechs, technology truly is the foundation of the business. And if you give engineers free rein, they will build, castles and build the perfect technology foundation. And that would take years and years. So I think for CTOs, tech founders, a key thing to understand is they really need to understand the mission. They really need to understand the business model. And ultimately, they need to understand what's the client value prop that this business is going to solve. Because engineering is all about trade-offs. How do you know if you're making the right trade-offs? It's only when you really understand these things at the core, right? Again, taking Endowus as an example, I shared earlier our big ambition and how we started with CPF. But even back then, we knew that if you look at where this mission will lead us, we would end up with a digital wealth platform that would need to support multiple asset classes, support multiple currencies, be able to operate in multiple jurisdictions across regions, support different kinds of funding sources. So we knew all of these things would be coming, but it would be too much to start with everything on day one. And so, like I said, we started with a few core things that we launched. In fact, back when we launched, We didn't even have a mobile app. So imagine launching a tech company without a mobile app. But that's what we did. We started with just a web app and then added things over time. Now we have everything. Now we have all the asset classes you would want. We have multiple currencies. We are in multiple regions, and we are expanding. So back then, because we knew this was the direction, we ended up making a few foundational architectural choices, and I won't get into details, get too technical.
Thank you.
But those choices have really carried us through. Those choices are what have enabled us to innovate over the last 5 years and continue to expand our product portfolio, etc. So having that long-term vision around where the business is heading, being able to bring it back and say, what is core? Like there is a very classical definition of architecture. Architecture in the technology sense is anything that is hard to change, right? So you have to build the architecture right for the business, because that is the bit that will be hard to change. Everything else you evolve, small steps. So those foundational architectural investments really carried us through, and that's why we have been able to innovate. So yeah, it comes down to understanding the business, marrying the technology to that business outcome, and then making incremental progress.
Thank you so much.
May I just add on to that?
Yes, please.
Because you mentioned architecture and all those decisions, and you really brought me back, Deepa. I remember so distinctly, we were a team of 10 people at that point in 2018, early 18, and we unfortunately were skewed towards non-technical founders and non-technical team members in the early team, and we made some decisions then where we thought, oh, we'll make this decision now, it's going to be a stopgap, and then we're immediately going to switch over when we go live, and of course, those systems are still well with us today. I think the joke on the engineering side is the minute you go into production, that's when it becomes legacy, right? And that, true enough, 7-8 years on, we're still dealing with these kind of decisions that we didn't take too much time to consider back in the day. So I really appreciate the technical founders or folks in the early team that have the technical experience. It's so awesome to me as a non-technical founder that in the early core team, when you come together with that big vision but a small team, you learn about all these other functional areas that you maybe in school didn't even have a chance to touch on, and the most magical thing about those early days is just that coming together of all the disciplines to go and take on this really hard challenge, right? And so thank you for sharing.
Yep. Thanks for adding the points. So next question is for the two entrepreneurs here. How crucial is it for entrepreneurs to adapt and pivot your business strategies in response to evolving market trends and customers' needs? And for you, Jason and Gerald, how often do you actually, I would say, review your business strategies in terms of the alignment with the market trends and your customer needs? Because I know in the startup space, we are constantly juggling between what you want to build and what your customer wants you to build. Yeah. Jason, you want to start first?
Sure. So I think on the topic of adaptation and flexibility, I don't think it's just smart, but I think it's essential for any business to survive, especially for startup, right? So modern trends are evolving really quickly, especially with social media. And let me just give an example. So WorkSG's a main component of WorkSG is user acquisition. And we employ many marketing strategies to do so. One main avenue that we use is social media. And I mean, we all know that the trends on social media shift almost every day, or even in the next second, a new trend can emerge. So what we do is that I think for the part on user acquisition, we always try to find new and creative methods to acquire customers. And I think the idea of that is that we try to hop onto the viral train, or to even become trendsetters to create these viral trends to acquire customers. And I think over time, the team and I, although being a new startup of about 16 months, we have done so quite well. We have acquired about 60,000 users. And on social media, I think we have garnered about 12 million impressions over the past 16 months. So I think Yeah, on this topic, I feel like we, sorry there, just give me a second. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. First panel here, so clearly it's
No
it's
worries.
taking a toll.
There's no right or wrong answer. You just speak from your
Yeah.
mind.
So I mean, coming on to the topic of user feedback, I think ever since day one, or rather when we were in SMU, talking to the students and getting user feedback, I think this has really changed. It was a game changer for us in terms of building our product and creating a product that the user wants, right? And if you ask how often or what's the frequency of such change, it really depends on the different industry. But for me, I feel like the best pivots for my company in the past 16 months always have come from user feedback. And it has really allowed me to take the different, allowed me to climb the little small steps that I earlier mentioned to get to where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gerald. I'm sure you have something to share.
No, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge Jason's sharing. I mean, it's even for founders, it can be intimidating to take an idea and share it to the broader world. And I think everything you said completely resonates. I really have nothing to add on the content side. It's finally about the client at the end of the day, not some internal, belief of the way the world should work. It's about bringing your, MVP or POC out there into the real world and let the market, we have a value in Signum that says, the market is the ultimate arbiter for what we do. And sometimes we can get so obsessed with our own, brand new shiny thing, and especially, like you said, the engineers left to their own devices sometimes can go a bit rogue on that front. And it's always important at the end of the day to think about, who does this serve? Who does this product, like what pain points does this product serve, and who are the clients that these products solve these pain points for? And once you start from there and you work backwards to then, well, what should we build? Then the answer becomes a lot more simple and straightforward, in my view. But really resonates what you shared, Jason, so thank you.
It also felt like another subtle plug for the Lean Startup book in terms of, going, launching something, actually getting client feedback, and then iterating on top of that. Yeah.
Founders support founders, and early, so anytime you need anything from like the ones of us who are maybe a little bit further along in the journey, I mean, feel free to share and ask.
Yep. Thanks all. And another critical factor for a successful startup is the speed of growth because we are in a very, very competitive space. So I want to hear from all of you, maybe some of the examples that you can share. How do you and your organization stay on top of the competition within your industry? Deepak, you want to start first?
Yeah, I mean, speed is no doubt critical for a startup. Startups can die if they don't execute quickly. And then, especially in FinTechs, where a lot of us are regulated, we have to balance speed with, security, stability. In fact, at Endavus, we call it 5S. So security, stability, scalability, speed, and spend, because we also have to be cost conscious. And we actually have goals attached to, improving us on all these dimensions. But it's a lot to balance, right? How do you balance speed with everything else? So Jason mentioned MVPs. So we are big believers in that approach. Any new initiative, we try and pare it down as much as possible to the core essence of what we want to launch, and then really rapidly iterate on top of that initial launch. And sometimes it's also about finding, like in that large problem space, what problems do you need to solve one by one? So maybe I'll take our investments in Gen AI as an example, since Gen AI is quite topical right now. So if you think about generative AI, there's three problems you can think of. One is it's just a new technology. So you need to figure out what it's good at, how do you use it effectively, etc. Second is how do you take care of data confidentiality, security in the context of Gen AI? And the third is very unique to Gen AI, hallucinations. How do you contain hallucinations and things like that? And so, again, taking that MVP approach, we said, why don't we ship value while we are solving every single of these problems. So the first value that we shipped was our customer support bot, which, if you go to WhatsApp and interact with our bot, that's a GenAI powered bot. So for that bot, we trained it purely on our public knowledge base, FAQs, help desk articles, etc. So there's no risk of client confidentiality, etc. So that was a very good way to learn the core. How do you actually use this technology, work with it? After that, we started introducing our fund information, returns, all of these things. This is very structured data. And in structured data, you don't want the model to make up facts. You really want to stick to the facts. So that's what has given us an understanding how to contain hallucinations and things like that. So this is something that we are internally dogfooding, and we'll launch it in Jan-Feb timeframe. And then the third piece is then bringing in client data and figuring out how can we use generative AI to make client interactions much more personalized and rich. And that's something we are now in R&D stage, and then we'll get experience with it. So really, it's about breaking things down, starting with MVPs, and rapidly iterating. I'm a big believer in creating engineering orgs that are designed for rapid iterations. So even after 5 years of operating the business, we ship very, very fast. For us, the average time that a piece of code goes from a developer starting to into production is about 2.1 days. And we ship at least 8 or 9 changes in production every single weekday. So that's what keeps us competitive. Start small and then keep rapidly iterating.
Thank you. I like your examples. Gerald, I would love to hear from you as well in terms of competition, because Signums also operates in multiple markets. So what are some of the examples you can think of where you took certain actions to make sure the team and organization stay on top of the competition?
Yeah, I'm just going to use Deepak's example of that, of rapid iteration, validating the hypothesis, etc. I think as we think about execution, as we think about competition, and we think about how to stay ahead. The mental picture that comes to mind that I really like is the difference between a startup, or the difference between a traditional institution, an established institution, and a startup is sort of the difference between an oil tanker and a speedboat, right? So the oil tanker is stable, doesn't get rocked by the waves too much, and it's steady, eddy, and reliable. For startups, speed is one of the critical advantages that we have. Maybe one of the very few advantages that we have. And if we don't successfully learn how to harness this competitive edge, we are doomed to fail, right? We have otherwise no other weapons in our arsenal to bring to bear. So it's critical that everyone does that well. However, in the fintech space, and this word keeps coming up, which is, I really resonates with me, the word is balance, because in, I guess, more classical tech, Web 2 tech, move fast, break things can be a philosophy, it can be an organizing philosophy, it can be a call to action. But in financial services, when the things that we break are people's livelihoods, people's savings, people's and like endowment funds, we can't take those risks, and that's not what the regulator, but more importantly the clients, these are not the risks that the clients want us to take. So calibrating speed with deliberate action, consideration, is highly important for fintechs. I've been reading this book recently, and it's all about friction, and basically we have to, I think it's a good analogy for this balance question. We in the fintech world, right, in the fintech leadership, on the side of the fintech leadership of startups, we need to make the easy things easier to do, and the hard they make the good things easier to do and the not good things harder to do. Meaning that we need to smoothen the rails and make it more frictionless, let's say, for client onboarding, for client actions. But then for the really not so good things, let's say client third-party fund transfers and all that, we need to introduce deliberate friction to get the consumers to pause maybe and consider, hey, is this a scam that I'm responding to? Is this a good or bad actor that I'm interacting with? So, I think competition, staying ahead, speed is one thing, but also being very cognizant of the risks and the risk environment in which we operate and making sure that we comply both to the letter of the law, of course, that's a given, but also to the spirit of the law, and in the interest of protecting our customers.
Yep, thank you. Jason, do you have anything to add, even though you are not really, work actually is not really FinTech, but I'm sure speed is critical, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, as you spoken just a while ago, I think what's very important for work especially is really to, as I mentioned, a key component is user acquisition. And I think the component on speed applies very aptly when it comes to the way we reach out to users. And more often than not, we find a lot of competition in the space, especially in social media, where we need to keep up with the trends available in the market. And often when we create a content, we have many of our competitors who are looking at us and emulating what we do. And I feel like I think this is where it comes in, where first we need to be innovative with our content, and number two, we have to be quick to respond to trends and to create content to promote our product, right? So this comes to play almost every day at WorkSG, where my team and we focus on doing something quickly or adopting the trends quickly so as to hop on to the trend to acquire our users. Thank you.
That's why I never envy a head of marketing's job.
Oh, yeah.
It's never
She's
easy.
standing right there and she's hearing you.
Hi. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And next question is very specific to Gerald, but of course, Jason and Deepak, you can jump in if you have any relevant experience. So this question is about fundraising. Funding plays a very critical role in startup growth because with funding, we can accelerate the development of everything that we do. So Gerald, do you mind sharing with us your fundraising journey and offer probably suggestion or advice to our audience here on how do you navigate the fundraising landscape?
Sure, happy to share my experience, which hopefully is valuable. So I've been responsible for Signum's fundraising from the very beginning, from our seed round now to our 8th funding round. And collectively, we have raised over 200 million US from about 230 shareholders. And at our last round, we crossed a billion Sing dollar valuation. So trust me when I say I know how important fundraising is. Right? It is, without a doubt, one of the most important things a startup needs to do and needs to do well. At the same time, I do think that it's worthwhile to step back and recognize that we as founding teams, beyond just founders, founding teams can get very obsessed about fundraising. It can drive a lot of the strategic thinking. It can drive a lot of the narrative. In some negative cases, it can cause us to dilute our vision. It can dilute our mission. So I think it's always important, and in the interest of also keeping to the panel topic today, I think that thinking big, that big, audacious goal that you set right at the start, it's always got to be front and center. You always have to keep thinking about it. And it shouldn't be diluted or distorted in the purpose, solely in the purpose of fundraising. In terms of the execution of the fundraise, I mean, interestingly enough, it starts also with the vision. The fundraising narrative and your success with investors, it changes over time. I think the connective tissue from the seed round to the series, let me just speak to the Series B round or Series C round where we're at. The one thing that we always start and end with is our North Star. Well, why is it that we do what we do? Because that makes us Signum, that makes us really unique. That sets us apart from the hundreds of thousands of other digital asset competitors out there. And this is something that you as a founder or early team member, and then eventually the whole team needs to drill into them day in, day out. Of course, when you start off in the seed round, it is probably like 99% vision and the ability to pitch that, and 1% execution. But very quickly, you learn that the component that execution and very disciplined execution contributes to the fundraise and the fundraising success, I should say, that component, that percentage of vision versus reality catches up very quickly. I think certainly once you leave the seed and hit into the Series A, people are going to want to see execution success. And I know it's very easy to compress that to success on some vanity metrics, on the POC side, on the MVP side. I have a somewhat different take for fintechs because fintech startups are in a very curious position. Most startups, you build something, you ship, and then based on that data, you raise funds. For most fintechs, especially for Signum and our commitment on licensing and regulation, the first half of our the first third of our existence as a company was spent just acquiring licenses, meaning the only thing you could show is progress towards a license application. But a license application and success there is also a very binary outcome. It's just 1 or 0. So what does success towards a license application mean beyond submitting the license, right? Consequently, we had to get a lot better at showing execution in terms of the core team we were able to build around ourselves, in terms of the advisory council that we put together very early on, and then also in terms of the board of directors that we then brought to the table, also in support of the license application. And you might ask, why is this important to set up, for investors to set a price to the company to choose whether or not to support a company? How can a team, in absence of any product, be priced and be valued? And the reason is because getting and motivating a strong team, getting people with the CVs of a Deepak to join you, it's a sales job, man. Like, it's a sales job to get the person to join, and day in, day out after that, it's a motivation job. It's to make sure, talented professionals have a huge variety of options to choose from. So why do they choose you? Why do they choose your startup versus someone else, or versus a more established firm, especially since, you, as a startup, you aren't able to pay a market competitive wage? And it comes down to, again, of course, the vision, but I think more so the execution and the motivational competencies and the character of the founding team at the end of the day. And then from the core team, you bring on the senior, advisors, directors, and of course those folks also have multiple options if they are credible. And the ability to then convince these folks of your mission and then bring them into the organization and get them to provide the leadership, guidance, sounding board. Those things matter to potential investors, right? They want to assess you on those things in the absence of product and revenues. And then as we head to the Series B, I think then you leave all the vision and all the big dreams behind a little bit, and it comes down to your execution. It's all about the metrics, right? Financial, but also operational, also team-based metrics. And there's at that point, no amount of strong communication capability, no amount of vision can overcome poor execution and poor results. And there is, where we find ourselves. And honestly, it's been a wonderful and motivating journey. We're still raising, at least we still have some fundraisers ahead of us and an IPO ahead of us. So I'm also learning along the way. But yeah, happy to share my thoughts so far.
Thank you so much. I've learned so much from you personally. We have a few minutes left, so I want to open questions to the floor. If anyone has any questions for our panelists, please raise your hand and we'll pass you the mic.
Hi there. Thank you, all of you. That was really insightful. The question, I guess, is for all three of you. Gerald, you just spoke about the pre-Series B, the importance of the vision. When assessing other co-founders or founding team members or even early stage members, what do you guys look for and how do you assess someone's going to be the right fit for you in terms of joining your vision, that they've got the same vision of, thinking big, but also being realistic and starting small. And just to take that a step further as well, in your case, Gerald, you talked about the non-technical side. How do you assess someone who's going to be the right fit, who's on the technical side? And Deepak, for yourself, how do you assess someone who's going to be the right fit on the business side when maybe you come from two different schools of thought or two different worlds?
Well, I think it's a great question, and the short answer is that it's really tough, and we're still learning. I'm still learning how to do it better. I think one thing that we definitely improved on is what we capture in terms of how we assess fit, cultural fit, values fit. Is something that we enshrine then in one of the values that we have. We say talking greater than doing. And I think it's very easy, especially as a young founder, a young founding team, to be persuaded, to be, blown away by a brilliant CV and then a very persuasive communicator. And we made so many mistakes in the early days of bringing these people on board and then realizing that this was the only talent and capability that they have, and especially when we brought them, from TradFi institutions into this new world of digital assets. So what that has helped us to and informed in terms of a tweak to our process is, of course, trust, right? Trust that gut stomach feeling that you have, because that's important. It's a very quick and dirty heuristic for all the mental algo that you've developed. In terms of like your read, your feel for a person or the market opportunity, right? So you have to trust the stomach feeling, as my Swiss friends call it. But then you have to verify, right? And verification means we're gonna bring you into the organization. We're gonna give you trust until it's proven otherwise. But then we're going to monitor you very strictly during the probation period. We're going to give you very clear OKRs or KPIs, deliverables. And then we're going to assess in full transparency with you all the milestones, so that at the end of the day, for us it's 3 to 6 months depending on the seniority, there will be no surprises on both sides, about the outcome. And when I say both sides, I really mean it. I think, especially if you're a small startup, you have to have the humility to know that many of your, if you hire well, many of your top talents, your early talents, they have options. And so it has to be a partnership approach. They're not employees. They are partners to you. They're early partners to you. They just didn't happen to be around at the founding table when the idea was generated, right? And so you need to play it straight. You need to lay, I think, it needs to be a mutual assessment. And I tell that to team members even today, right? Personally, still, we're at a size where, one member of the founders will be part in the interview process before the final offer is made. I think that's important. And then we say, look, we both don't know what we're doing, right? We both don't know whether this would be a good fit. Like any good relationship, you'd start off with a leap of faith. And let's keep an open line of communication. You have to assess me and my fit for you as I do, to you. And as long, I think, as we communicate open and transparent communication, as long as we leave our cards on the table, we have one of the key behaviors for us is we say, tell it like it is without fear of judgment. We have to leave nothing in the darkness. I tell my team members, it's not an option, it is an obligation that you speak truth to me. And we don't want filtering. We don't want massaging or marketing, and when we communicate internally. Doesn't give you an excuse, to be crude about it or to do it poorly, but you have to come with clean hands and lay out the data. And then in the end, I believe if you have a decent filtering mechanism, you will find that 95% of the time you pick correctly. People, when presented with facts and data, will reach the same conclusions. At least that's my belief. Yeah.
What I'll add is that the criteria also changes a bit between very early stage seed, just getting off the ground, to later Series B kind of stage, because the needs change. At the founding stage, you are looking for people who are much more comfortable dealing with high levels of ambiguity, much more, having a history of being able to learn, build new experiences or gain new experiences quickly and be able to pivot quickly. So you're valuing adaptability way higher than later in the game. And later in the game, you're looking for people who bring a lot of, depth. They are experts at whatever you need at that point in time, and they then believe in you. But in both of these cases, the common thread is still you want people who really buy into the mission. I think the poorest fit comes when you bring on people who are not really bought into the mission. And that's a challenge to assess because some people will fake it till they make it. But that's why, as Gerald said, it's hard. Yeah.
Jason, you have anything
No,
to
I've
add?
really nothing to add. I
Okay.
think both Deepak and Gerald has said it so well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I will add it for you. So when it comes to hiring, we can go to WorkXG. Yeah. So unfortunately, we are running out of time. Thank you everybody for your time today and generously sharing the insights. Also, thank you to the audience for your participation. Yep. Enjoy the rest of Singapore FinTech Festival. Thank you.
Thank you all.